Okay. All right, we're ready to go.
Okay. Okay, so I will now explain you the SAML outbound connection, that is onboarding the SAML application
Mhm.
into Okta. It means like the SAML applications will use the Okta as the identity provider. That is where the user's authentications will take place, and Okta will act as the identity provider to supply the user's identity into SAML based application
Mhm.
using the SAML protocol. Okay, so SAML means like we have two different flows. Okay, the two different flows in the sense the configuration perspective, it's going to be the same thing on the Okta. Okay, there is no difference for the flows, and then the flows depends on how the initiation has been done. Initiation in the sense like how the user is going to initiate the single sign-on flow. That defines the like which flow like the SAML has been initiated. Okay, so one is the SAML SP initiated flow and another one is the SAML IDP initiated flow. Okay, so the SAML SP initiated flow means the first, like the user will be directly accessing the service provider. Here, the two terms related to SAML is like the one is the identity provider and another one is the service provider.
So
So
what is the
that you
difference between them? What
know,
is the
right?
difference between these two?
Okay,
Service provider?
okay. So the service provider means it's an end application who is going to use the token, either the SAML token or the OIDC token to make the user login. Okay, so it's an end application. Okay, and the identity provider, it's like an is the Okta or CS SiteMinder. So those are all the identity provider. I mean, like where the user's authentication will is going to take place. So let's say like if I'm going to hit the Sydney application, sydney.com or something. Okay, so if I
Mhm.
hit that particular URL, like the user is trying to access the Sydney application. Okay, what he will do, like he, like he maybe, like he has bookmarked the particular application URL. So, like he'll be directly hitting that application. Okay, and when he hit that application, the single sign-on flow will get initiated. So at that point, the application will generate one request. Okay, so here if you see the application will generate the some request, SAML request, that is called as the SAML request to IDP. Okay, in browser I will show you, like in the real-time flow, the SAML, those SAML messages I will show you. When a user hits, like the redirection happens at the front end, the user is going to see when an application has been hit, he'll be just directly redirected to the Okta's login page. Okay, for him to enter the username and then the password. Okay, but in the backend, what will happen is service provider will generate some XML data, and that XML data will be passed to the identity provider. In our case, in the outbound case, identity provider is Okta. Okay, so Okta will receive that SAML request, and based on that SAML request, it will generate. It will check which application it belongs to. So because like we have a lot of applications, right? So
Mhm.
when a request from a different application comes in, so based on that SAML request, it will determine which application it belongs to, whether it's an application A, application B, application C, or something. Okay, and then it will display the Okta login page. Okay, and once the Okta login page has been displayed, and Okta, like where the user is going to authenticate the user is going to authenticate. He is going to enter his username and then the password. Okay, and then IDP will generate the SAML token. Okay, which is also going to be an XML data. Okay, so in the OIDC end, it's going to be just a JWT data, right? JWT token. But in
Mhm.
SAML
So
case, it
SAML
is going to be an
SP
XML.
initiated, this is outbound, right? And IDP is inbound, right? Is that the point concept?
No, no. So, SP initiated means, no, the inbound. So, what they meant in the SOW is, so that is different. So Okta will act as Okta will act as the service provider in that case,
Mhm.
and the Azure or any other
Google.
organization's login page, Google, will act as the identity provider.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so Okta will receive the SAML token from these IDPs, and it will process that particular token, whether to onboard the user or update the user, or onboard the user into the end application. Okay, so then it will redirect the user to the service provider. You got it right?
yeah, yeah.
So it will be like the authentication, where the authentication is going to take place, whether the authentication is going to take place at Okta, and using that, service provider will access the application, will let the user to log in. Then it's an outbound. Okay, so
Yeah.
the inbound means like we will receive the token from a different parties like the Azure or Google or any
Mhm.
other organization's login page, login component. We will receive the SAML token, and using that SAML token, it will modify the SAML token to the end application. Okta will modify the SAML token to end application, and it will pass to the end application for the end application to get logged in.
Mhm.
Okay. So in simple terms, you can determine whether it's an inbound or outbound based on where the login is getting take place, whether it is in Okta or whether it is in some other IDP. Okay. So this is SAML SP initiated flow. So only difference SAML SP initiated or IDP initiated is, so SP initiated where the users will initiate the login, by using which URL he is going to initiate the login. Okay, so if he uses the service provider initiated URL, that is the application's URL, then it is an SP initiated flow where the SAML request and all will be involved. Okay, I will show you in real time like how it looks like. Okay, but in SAML IDP initiated flow, like for example in the Okta dashboard we have, right, where different uh, applications will be displayed. So here
Mhm.
if you see Okta dashboard, how can I access? So here I logged in as admin.
So when I
I
do
log
this
in as
job,
an
I'll
end
get
user.
Okta admin access, right, in my workplace.
Yeah, Okta admin access. So you tried without admin access?
No, no.
814. No, like in your workspace also, you have to switch from normal account to an Okta admin account. Then only you'll be able to see all this details. So normal means like you will just see only the app icon. My end user dashboard is there. Okay. So here if you see, so this could be the end user's dashboard. For example, like in any organization,
Yeah, before
users
previous
will try to
organization, I had
access this.
Okta, right? Previous organization,
Mm,
I had Okta, and then when I went there,
okay.
I saw a lot of applications there.
Mm,
Yeah, so
okay, like this, right?
I used to be a tester. I used to be a QA tester, and
Uh-huh.
everyone has Okta had Okta for their, like, if you wanted to reach lesson, or you wanted to reach ADP, or you wanted to reach any other place. So you used to go to Okta, and
Mm-hmm.
then Okta had all this application integrated. So what is that flow then?
Okay.
That is SP, right?
So that flow, yeah, that flow is like from Okta. If you're trying to access any other applications, then
Hmm.
it's an IDP initiated flow, because you are the end users trying to log in from this Okta console, and he is
Hmm.
hitting this application, Okta workflows or SAML outbound or inbound, like launch app I'm giving. So from the IDP, I'm initiating the login flow. So that is the Okta, I mean the IDP initiated flow. Okay, so in some scenarios, like some applications would support only the IDP initiated flow, and they don't, like support the SP initiated flow. The meaning of that is like the applications are not capable of generating the SAML request or the SAML SP SAML request to IDP uh, then only Okta know like which application has reached, and then to show the login page, and send the SAML token to a necessary application, right? So I will just show you simply, like one example, like then you'll be more clear the difference between these two, and also what and all the terms that is present in the I mean the SP initiated URLs. Okay. I don't know. Yesterday I created this. Yesterday morning. Use some test flows only. So consider this as an application. Okay. So consider this as an application, and users is trying to, he has bookmarked this particular URL, and he is trying to access this application. Okay. So this is the IDP initiated flow. Sorry, SP initiated flow, because user is entering via the application endpoint. So this is application endpoint sptest.imshowcase.com. Okay, so this is an application endpoint, and here if you see, so when I hit that application endpoint, so application has detected that there is no user session for that user, then it has generated some SAML request. Okay, so SAML request, and that SAML request has reached this endpoint. So this endpoint is nothing but it's an Okta endpoint, right? So this endpoint is also called as the single sign-on URL. Okay, so in the metadata I will show you. So this is the URL that application should have, so that like whenever login request has comes, then the application is going to generate some SAML request. Okay, so here if you see, this is the SAML request, right? So the SAML request to the Okta endpoint, and here if you see this payload, so this is an encoded format. It's just a base 64 encoded data. SAML base 64 decoder. So this is just a base 64 encoded data that is being generated by the application and passed to Okta. Here if you see, so this is the SAML request. Okay, and this is nothing but an XML data. Even you can view that in the SAML tools also. If you have any SAML tools enabled in your browser, instead of viewing it from the, you know, so look at this. So this is the first step, like the IDP, the request has reached, the user has hit at the application endpoint, and the request has reached the IDP, which is the Okta, with the SAML request. Okay, the SAML request, if you see, this is the SAML data, and this is the structure, the standard structure of any SAML authentication request. Okay, the SAML authentication request will contain some parameters like the force authentication, and what is the assertion consumer service URL, and what is the time that the it has issued. Okay, and who is issuing this data. Okay, so these data and all will reach Okta, and once it has reached Okta, based on this particular field, issuer field, it will determine which application the login request has generated for. Okay, you're getting it right.
Yes, yes. I just, if I see in front of me, like how would I, how would I, like in Okta, how does it show? I think that
Yeah, yeah, Okta will show. Like, so here if you see, then like the user is logging in. Okay, and once he has logged in, I will come to that. Okay, like in Okta, what is the changes that is needed. So end user does this login. So, and after I logged in, I got redirected to the end application itself. Okay, with the end application, with the token, with the this is the SAML token. Let's say XML data, which will contain what is the certificate and what is the digital signature, and the which time it has issued, and what are the URLs that is involved, and who the user is, mainly the claims, like who the user is, what is his first name, last name, and his name identity, name ID means like what is his username. Subject field will contain what is his username. Okay, so this is the email address for this user present in Okta. Okay, so all this information will be passed in a SAML token in a post call to this ACS URL. ACS URL is the Assertion Consumer Service URL. Okay, now I will show you on Okta
So
how it
where
will
you
look
get
like.
this tracer? Will that be in my workplace as well? The tracer that you saw, SML tracer.
Yeah, tracer like I used on extension. Okay, SAML tracer extension. Chrome, it's a Chrome extension.
Mm.
Okay, so which everyone can add it to their Chrome, and like this is the extensions icons, right? So in the extension icon, you can click on top of the SAML tracer. It will open one pop-up. Okay, and when you do any SAML operations or the SAML based login in your browser, okay, so specifically it should be on your browser, then it will capture that particular data. Like these, all the URLs will be captured, and this extension will just simply highlight which is SAML and which is whatever be
Mm.
the SAML data, so that will be highlighted. So this is first the like the SAML request, then the SAML response. Okay, the SAML request and response will be involved only on the SP initiated flow. Okay, so here if you see, then like in the app integration, so this is also under this app integration, like in the applications, and in the create app integration. Okay, and which type of app? It's a SAML 2.0 based app.
Mhm.
And the application name, like you can keep application A. So single sign-on URL. So this is the URL that you have to get it from the application.
Mhm.
Okay.
Application owner.
So in my, yeah, yeah, single sign-on URL and the SP entity ID.
So single sign-on SPID, like yeah, list it.
SP entity ID.
Yeah.
So in the SAML setting, if you see, so these are all like the optional default relay state and everything. But these two are mandatory, like a single sign-on URL and the SP entity ID is mandatory. Okay. And in Okta itself, in Okta dashboard itself, you can preview the, um, uh, like how the SAML assertion would look like. Okay. So here, if you see this test, SP test. So this I used. Okay, so this particular tool I have used for testing my SAML application. Okay, and I used this SP initiated SSO, and this is the metadata. But before that, I want to more. Okay, so this application would give me some metadata. Okay, so this is the SP metadata. So SP metadata means any applications that you are going to integrate with, they are going to provide you with some metadata. So that metadata would contain what is the entity ID and what is
Okay.
the like a single sign-on URL. So
So
assertion
they will give
consumer
me the
service URL.
metadata for every application that I have to onboard, right?
Ye- Yes, yes. So they have to provide the metadata. So if they are not able to provide you the metadata, I mean, like if they are not able to generate the metadata at least, okay, then they have to provide you these details. What is the entity ID and what is the assertion consumer service URL, otherwise called as single sign-on URL, which I shown you here. Okay, so this is otherwise called as ACS URL. Here you can see this is often referred to as SAML Association Consumer Service URL for your application. In the metadata, it will be mentioned as Association
Hmm.
Consumer Service URL only. Okay, and what is the ACS URL and what is the entity ID? These two parameters are mandatory. Okay, so there are a lot of parameters, but
Okay.
these two parameters are mandatory.
Okay, so go ahead and put it in. Let me see if.
In SP entity ID, IAM showcase. Okay, so I will create with a different name because I already onboarded one app with the same name. Okay, so it will you can onboard only one app with one name. Okay, SP entity. This should be unique
Hmm.
inside your Okta console. Okay. And what is the signature algorithm to be used. So these and all can be default. So like if any application specifically mentions I want to use only this particular algorithm, then you can like skip to it. And whether you want to encrypt the SAML token or encrypted fashion, you have to pass it, or like plain text. So whatever we have seen is the plain text. Here if you see, even in my browser, I can simply see what is the data that is being passed. Okay, but in the encrypted token, this particular data will not be visible. We can just know like whether the SAML token is being passed or not, but even in my browser capture or browser network capture, like I will not be able to see what is the data being passed since it is going to be encrypted. Okay, so those details also you need to know whether the application is following any encryption strategy, or it is getting encrypted by CA SignMinder on the application while passing the attributes. Okay, the user claims.
Mhm.
So these claims and all will not be visible. First name, last name, what is the subject. Mainly these claims will get encrypted. So in CA SiteMinder, we need to make sure this is not an encrypted data. This is not passed as an encrypted data. Okay. If it is passed, then they have to provide the certificate also. What is the certificate that we can use or import it in an Okta end to encrypt the token and pass it to application. They have to provide you the public certificate. I'll just keep like internal app that we have created. Okay. So here if you see, so this is how like so that's it. Like so this is how like you can onboard the simple like standard application. Okay. So once you have onboarded, like Okta will show you like the metadata URL. So metadata URL is the IDP's metadata URL. So this is the SP metadata, right? The application's metadata, and this is the IDP's metadata. So here, if you see IDP SSO descriptor, so which will state you that this is the IDP metadata, and SP SSO descriptor, this is the SP metadata. And like the IDP metadata should typically contain this certificate, and what is the single sign-on service URL, okay, and what is the entity ID. So these fields it should typically contain. Okay, so this data that every applications that you're going to onboard into Okta, should be given. So once you onboard this Okta application inside Okta, you'll be getting this metadata URL, right? So either this metadata URL or the this metadata content as an XML file should be given to the application. Okay, then they will use it to import this certificate or configure this endpoint or onboard with this name ID, entity ID. Okay, so that when you see this SAML request has been generated, so I have imported that SAML metadata in here. Okay, so I'm in the SP test IAM showcase. So that when I initiate, so this application came to know, like to which endpoint the SAML request I should send to. Okay, so from this metadata only it has came to know the details. Okay, so since I imported that metadata, and once like it has known that information, then like it's simply passing that SAML request to our IDP. Okay, so this metadata, it's a it's a simply a data, I mean, like the complete picture of the data that you need to pass to the application. Okay, and we have to get from the application what is the entity ID and what is the single sign-on URL, and whether any encryptions has been involved, and whether any
What happen if encryption is involved?
yeah, if the encryptions has been involved, if in CA SiteMinder encryption is involved, and CA site, I mean the application is using the encrypted SAML token, then like at the Okta end we have to enable the encryption. Okay, so here if you see, so in order to enable the encryption, you needed the certificate. Okay, so I don't have the certificate, so that's why I keep it like this. The public key you need to keep it. Encryption certificate that you have to upload. Okay, any CR files that you have to upload, and once it has been uploaded, it means like we have enabled the SAML encryption. Okay, and the data that is going to they are going to receive is going to be completely in encrypted. So this is the data that they are going to receive when a user logs in. Okay, so this will
Hmm.
be completely in
What I'm gonna do
encrypted. This
with this
data will
data?
not be
This
received.
data, like this encryption data, is not needed for onboarding, right? Or migration, right?
No, not migration perspective. So this data, so this is the flow happens for the user login. Okay, and the migration means like we need to know whether already application is adopted with any sort of encryption or not.
Hmm.
If they have adopted with any sort of encryption, it's better to follow with that, right? I mean, maybe like there will be some confidential data will be present, right? I mean, confidential data in the sense like uh, maybe their PII, like the address, phone number, or which role the user is belongs to,
Hmm.
which organization. So those informations and all will be passed in the user's browsers in a plain text or the plain XML in the network, right? And like if they don't want that exposure, the data, the user's data to be exposed like that, then the application may request, or like your organization may adopt to encrypting the SAML token. Okay, so the encrypting means like the application has to provide you some certificate, CER certificate. Okay, the encryption certificate in a CER format, which is also called as the public key. That should be provided by the application, and you will be importing it. Okay, enabling and then importing it. This is to enable it, and then enabling and then just importing it. That's it. So once you enabled it, then yeah, you will not see any data like this. Users data to be exposed in users browser or in the network like this. Okay, you got it
Okay.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. have to look into this video again, but I understood. But the how long will it
Yeah.
take me to onboard one application if everything is ready?
Yeah, like maximum, like it depends on the claims. Okay, so the only major customization maybe you needed is on the claims, but remaining, like it should not take more than 1 or 1.5 hours. The claim mappings are claims, whether if you are retrieving it from any other applications, or from any other APIs, if you are retrieving the user's claims, then there is some customization involved, right? So if it is a simple mapping, then it is like this,
Hmm.
like the claims mapping also present here. So in the sign on, in the attribute statements, you have to do the claim mapping. Okay, so it's again going to be the claim mapping. First name, it's a simple claim mapping, straightforward claim mapping. Okay, start first name. So it will be something like this to map the claim.
Why we mark the claim?
So yeah, when you do this, so whenever a user is logging in, for example, I can give like the department. User dot profile dot department. So when I map like this, then in the SAML token, the user's department data, whichever the department he belongs to, that will be passed in the SAML token, like first name, last name. There will be in another field which is called the department, that will be passed in the SAML token. So this is the claim mapping or the attribute mapping, uh, like which is being done. And one more thing is like the assignment. So SAML applications require the assignments, like who the people should have access to. Okay, whether you can import the complete group of the people or assign it to this application, or assign some specific peoples only. So right now only one user is present in my Okta directory. Okay, so I will just simply assign it.
What is this? This is claims, right?
Now this is the user assignment.
Okay.
This is not the claims. So
Why you
you
need
who the
assignment? I
user
cannot
should
follow that.
access. No, like not all the people present in the Okta directory will get the access. Okay,
Mm.
so this one I onboarded, okay, previously, and this user I need to assign the application, which application he is going to have access to. Okay, so if you have like this, then in the console that application will be visible. Okay, now if you see, application A is visible. If that assignment is not there, then this icon for this user in the end user's dashboard will not be visible, and also he also will not be able to access it. So you understood, right? Or
Yeah, I understand inbound. How about outbound?
okay. So outbound, right now I don't have a POC. I will. Sorry, so this is about outbound, right? I mean, whatever we
SAML outbound, yeah.
like did it for SAML outbound. I will prepare it for the SAML inbound. I will create a connection with the different IDPs like Auth0 or Microsoft. Then I will show you that flow. Okay, so but in the SAML perspective, these are the data that we need to collect from the
Hmm.
application, like what is the ACS URL, and what are the claims or the user attributes to be passed in the SAML token, and what is the name ID. Name ID means the unique identifier, whether
Hmm.
it can be the username or the email address, or the user ID. So in Okta, if you see, whether it can be the email address or the username. Okay, and and what is the entity ID, right?
Mm-hmm. I'll find in
SP
the
entity
metadata.
ID.
Yeah.
Yeah, entity ID. Okay, so this details is from the ESP. This one, two, three, four details we need to collect it from the ESP, or whether encryption is involved. Encryption required. No, those details, and what is the Okta metadata, right? I mean, so this four is from the application, and the only detail that we are going to give it to the end application for them to configure is the Okta metadata. And the Okta metadata, you can generate the URL from the application itself. Sorry, I'll open this application. Yeah. This is also application. So whatever we are SAML application, and each SAML application will have one endpoint,
Mm.
like the SAML metadata endpoint. Okay, so that is the only endpoint that you need to share it to application. Okay, metadata
So
details,
every
metadata
single
URL.
application that I see in SitePoint, I have to create the application, then add all these parameter.
Yes, yes. So the CA SiteMinder itself will give you this information. Okay, I mean, if you look at the CA site mentor itself, you will get what is the ACS URL and what is the user attributes being passed and what is the name ID principal. Everything you can collect it from there itself. Okay, you need not to wait for the application to provide those details. Okay, unless there is no change at the application end. Okay, so those details you can collect, and then you can onboard the application, and then you can give the metadata URL to the application for them to configure. Okay.
Okay. After configuring, how do I know it configured properly?
Okay. So like Okta will give you, you know like uh, some endpoint for you to test it. Just a second. So here if you see app embed link, okay, even with this endpoint you can test it. In the application in the general section, so this endpoint you can test it. Okay, use this URL to trigger the login. Okay, so when you trigger the login, the SAML login process will go through. And once the login process, I'm not doing the login, I'm just using the browser where the session, my session is already existing. So SAML login flow will happen. And in the SAML tools, um, you have to make sure whether to the single sign-on URL of application, whatever we configured, that has been triggered here, and the SAML data with the claims, with the configured claims, whatever with the expected claims that should be passed to the application,
So I
that
should
is
go
being
to this
passed here or not.
imshowcase.com and test it out, or no?
No, 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 no. You don't have to go to IAM showcase. So, for example, let's say like you have onboarded one Sydney application. Okay. So, in that case, the callback or the redirect URL which you are going to configure is something different, not IAM showcase, right? So here, if you see, this is a single sign-on URL which I configured. Okay. So in your case, like the application name means like you will configure with the you will configure with some Sydney application. Sydney a.com/. callback slash authenticate, something like this. Let's consider that they have given you the URL, something like this, and you have onboarded it here, and the entity ID you have onboarded as Sydney. And the claim mapping requires the departments to be passed. Okay. Then in the SAML tracer, we need to make sure whether this endpoint has been invoked. Okay. I mean, to this endpoint, the SAML token is getting posted or not. So what the application would expect is they are expecting after the successful login, they are expecting some token for that user to be
Yeah, yeah.
received at their end, right? So we can make sure whether to this endpoint the SAML token is being passed or not. So right now, since I'm using the IAM showcase as the application, so like I'm posting the SAML token to this endpoint, and this endpoint is retrieving this post data and displaying the user, like who the user is logged in, like this. Okay. So that is his SPIM showcase functionality. Okay. But to the single sign on URL, whether the SAML data, the expected SAML data, like this completely, and in the summary if you check, so what is the subject and what is the claims, whatever be the claims that we mapped, whether is passed correctly or not, that we have to make sure. Well, let's say like I have mapped the application requires first name, last name, department, and what is his position. So these four fields required. Okay. uh, but in the SAML token we are seeing like first name, last name. Okay. Then we have to correct it at our end to make sure that we pass the department and the his position also in the SAML token. Okay. So this is how we test the SAML application to make sure whether that endpoint we are passing the SAML token. But whether that endpoint is doing that functionality correctly, retrieving the token and logging in the user, that and all the application's responsibility, right? So they have to configure the metadata and use the certificate to validate this token before using it, to check the authenticity and check the timestamp, and use the retrieve this attribute user information and create the session for this user. So those things and all the application's responsibility. Okay. So they are going to anyway like they simply going to replace whatever that is present for CSI Minder with this. But anyway, like that is the application's
Mhm.
responsibility. From our end, we just have to make sure whether this data is being getting passed, getting posted to this endpoint or not. If it is posted, then that's it. Like whether they are showing any failure or something, that they have to check at their end. We need to make sure that this data
I'll
is
check it
getting
in
passed correctly
Postman
or
then,
not.
right?
Yeah. 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 Sorry.
I'll check it in Postman.
A postman, you can check only this OIDC based protocols only. We can check in Postman. Okay. But in here you cannot check this AML. You cannot check in Postman. So this is nothing but when that login is occurring, like in the network capture also you can capture that data.
Okay.
Okay. Or if you want to keep it simple, then you can install this extension, and this extension, when you do the login process using this IDP
What is the name of the extension
URL,
again? SAML.
SAML, just a SAML tracer extension. Any extension you can install SAML tracer extension for Chrome. Okay, this one you can just add it to your Chrome. Once you add it, a pop-up will be there. Then you can just enable it and then do the login. Okay, to perform the login, you can use this IDP initiated URL, right? So this IDP initiated URL also you can collect it from the settings, application settings only. This also will give you the previous AML session.
It's metadata, right?
Yeah. So and this one, like the previous AML session option here. Okay, like if you don't want to involve this browser or something, then when you click this previous AML session, it is showing what is the claims being passed. Attribute value and attribute name. First name is getting passed. And what is the attribute value? So since I mapped only for the attribute, that is getting passed. And what is the audience or the application entity ID that I configured? Since I configured as Sydney, it is coming as Sydney. And what is the name ID? Name ID is nothing but the use subject or
Hmm.
the principal name. The user's email address is getting passed. And what is the issuer? And the destination URL, if you see, so this is the ACS URL that is being configured. sydneyapa.com/callback/authentic. To this endpoint, the data should get passed seamlessly. Okay. So in the real time that you have to test means, like after the users login and all, then we can use this. You can use this IDP test URL
Can you scroll up?
embedded. So this is the IDP test URL. Okay. You can use the URL to sign to application A from a portal or other location outside of Okta. Okay, so this URL you can use it to actually test or trigger this application. Okay, so you have different options, either that one or using uh, the generate assertion option in the Okta
What kind of
application.
application is this again?
This is SAML based
Mm.
outbound.
Okay, okay.
Outbound means like Okta is sending the data to a different application. It is not receiving. Receiving means it's going to be an inbound onboarding, but outbound. So we are going to Okta is going to send some data to um, application. You got it right?
Mhm.
Okay. So this is all regarding this inbound, outbound for both SAML and OIDC. But I will prepare for this inbound SAML connection between uh, between Azure or any Auth0. So like then I will show the flow and what is the data that needs to be exchanged. That is also I will show. Okay. If you have any doubts, like you can come back to me again. Okay, then we can
Yeah, more
have
doubts will
a detailed
happen
session
after I go over this and after I
after you
start
got
to
the
work.
access.
I got very good idea. Very good idea. Can you go over the OIDC that you showed in the morning? I mean, showed you yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
Like what are the connection needed, the attributes?
Okay. Okay. So, OIDC based app integration. So there could be different flows based on the applications that we are going to use. Okay. So, like the OIDC with authorization code flow, and that is the one particular flow, widely used flow. And the another widely used flow is with the authorization code with Pixie standard.
Hmm.
Okay. So here, like the onboarding the applications, like inside applications, create app integration, and what is the OpenID connect. I mean, what is the protocol sign-in method that you have to select,
Hmm.
and whether it's a web application, single or native application. Accordingly, you can select. So this will determine whether it's a web application. It's going to be an authorization code. Single page application or native application. This will enable the authorization code with Pixie automatically. Okay, after enabling the web application also you can enable the Pixie flow. Okay, so that is the only difference between these two. Okay, and in this um, like basically we need to collect certain information from the application. So like like in the from application we need to collect only um, the callback URL. What is the callback URL that we need to whitelist or allow in our OIDC based application? So that callback URL we need to add it. For
Mhm.
example, let's say like the Sydney application is provided as some callback URL com slash callback slash callback. Okay, then we have to add that particular URL here.
Mhm.
Okay, and so that is the only URL that we needed for onboarding any application here. Okay, and so once we onboarded the URL, then also we need to know like what and all the claims that we need to pass. Okay, the first name, last name, department, or only the first name, last name, or only the email address we need to pass, or there are any bunch of attributes that needs to be passed in the JWT token. Okay, so those are information also we need to collect it from the CSI pointer. Okay, and once you got those information, then like you'll be able to onboard. Okay, so I am just onboarding it here. So once you have onboarded, Okta will be generating you some client ID
Mhm.
and the client secret, right? So this information we need to pass it to application in a secure manner. Okay, so like in a secure way, the client ID, because these are all the credentials. I mean the client ID, client secret. In a secure manner, we need to pass the client ID and the client secret that we can copy. Okay, and the URLs. URLs means like the OIDC based application means there are different endpoints has been involved. Okay,
Mhm.
so the different endpoints that we need to share it to application for them to configure. Okay, so the different endpoints are like the main endpoint is the well-known endpoint. So the well-known endpoint structure the default well-known endpoint without the authorization servers and all. The default well-known endpoint for any Okta console will be like this. Okay, so whatever be your organization name, that you can replace it here and then use that endpoint. So that endpoint will give us the complete metadata
Mhm.
or complete data
In the
related
beginning,
to
for
OIDC.
OIDC, we don't get metadata. We only get the callback URL.
A callback URL. So so that is the only parameter that they have to pass it. Application needs to
Like in
pass
the
it.
morning, you mentioned that
Okay.
we know we need well-known URL, authorization point,
Yeah,
token
well-known
point.
URL. No, well-known URL is the Okta's endpoint. So this well-known URL is what we are going to share it to application. Okay.
Okay.
So inbound. So in inbound, we will get the well-known endpoint, and we will share only the callback URL. So inbound is not there, right? Okay, let's not confuse that. So we will share the Okta metadata, which is also called as well-known endpoint of for in OIDC, and we will receive the callback URL from the application for us to configure. And this well-known endpoint will is going to contain what is the authorization endpoint, what is the token endpoint, and what is the user info endpoint, client ID, client secret. After the user the application is onboarded, we will get the client ID and then the client secret.
Mhm.
Okay, so these details that we need to give it to till this point, that we need to give it to application, and from application we will get what is the flow that is being followed, whether the authorization code or authorization code with Pixie, and what is the callback endpoint, and what is the attributes or the claims to be passed. Okay, so once you got this information regarding the claims and all, so the token claims, then you have to do the mapping here.
Where how the JWT token get used, the JSON, like when does that
Yeah.
work? Like just
So
JWT say just they said okay, we found your credential, you're good to go. Is that it?
yeah, like when the login is happening, so in the SAML case, we are the SAML token is getting posted to their endpoint, right? And but in the in the OIDC flow case, so they are going to call an API, which is called the token API, to retrieve the token. Okay, the application will call the token API to retrieve the token. So, so using that JWT, they
Mm.
will log in the user. They will come to know who the user is, or for whom we need to create the
Who sends
session.
the
They will come to know.
JWT to who? From where
The
to who?
Okta will be sending this JWT at the time of login,
Mm-hmm.
when the login is happening, when the user login is happening, or when they invoke all these endpoints like the authorization URL, token URL, the client ID, client secret. When the application is invoking this particular flow or this particular endpoint, then after the user's authentication, Okta will be passing the JWT to application. Okay, so and that JWT will contain the information. So you can use for any decoding the JWT. You can use this jwt.io to decode the payload. Okay, you'll
Mm.
come to know what is the payload that is being passed. Payload will contain what is my claims, the preferred username, first name, last name, okay, my email address, and what is my subject. Subject is the Okta user ID, right, the unique identifier, and who issuing this token. All this information will be present in the payload. And this data is generated by the token endpoint. Here, if you see in my console, so this postman is making this call. Okay, in since I used this postman as my test bed. Okay,
Mm.
but in application, the application is going to make the same call. Okay. So they are going to make a post call to this endpoint with the authorization data. Authorization data is nothing
Mm.
but it's an encoded client ID and then the client secret. Okay, so whatever we given to the application. Okay, and
Mm.
some like the some parameters, grant type, code, so those details until they are passing. And in response setter, and in the response body, this endpoint will give them the token. What is the token type, access token, and what is the ID token? Those information will be given to them. Okay. Not able to scroll it down. So this data, this response body will contain, yeah, this response complete and response body will contain the token data. Here, if this is the token type, ID token, with this ID token, they are going to parse it. So this
Mm.
is the encoded format. This is in an encoded base 64 encoded format. Okay, and
Do I need to
I
know
just
base
got that.
64 thing in my workplace? No, right?
No, no. So we just have to know, like, since it's base 64, it's in base 64 encoded data, then we can use any tools, either the base 64 decoder or jwt.io will simply, like, give the decoded data, like what is the header, or what is the payload, or what is the signature, right? So those details it is showing. Okay. So that JWT contains all this information, which is issued by this token endpoint only. Okay. This token endpoint will be called by the application. Application is calling this endpoint with the client ID and then the client secret which we have provided, and the logged in users session one-time data, which is otherwise called as the authorization code. Okay, so this authorization code will be sent to the callback URL when a user logs in, right? So using that authorization code and the client ID and then the client secret, they are calling this token endpoint to get the token. And then again, they can, once they got the token, they can again use that access token. The application can use this access token. Okay, in the authorization header, pass it as an authorization header to this endpoint and to the user info endpoint, which will give them the raw JSON, not the JWT or something. which will simply give them the raw JSON. Okay, and then the claims mapping I have shown, and the client ID, and then the client secret, and the enablement of Pixie is something, like a
Hmm.
checkbox that we have to enable. If the Pixie has been enabled here, then we have to make sure that the application also follows this Pixie. So no configurations needed at our end for configuring it, but uh, the application has to follow that particular standard to initiate the login, Pixie standard to initiate the login. Okay, got it right. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. I can hear.
you
Yeah,
you got it right,
yeah, yeah,
everyone.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you can go through this anyway. Like I'll prepare this inbound also, and when
Hmm.
you get the access, definitely you'll have some doubts also. At that point, also we can connect and discuss. Okay, not a problem.
Okay, sure, sure. You're gonna do the inbound and let me know, right? Maybe I can figure it out. But
Yes, yes.
okay.
Yeah. Today, I mean, like today, your morning time, I can show that to you.
Hmm.
Is that, I mean, like today morning, I will ping you. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks
Okay.
so much. Thank you.